NBA draft is Thursday night. Our man, Jon Rothstein, insider for CBS Sports Network and Sports Illustrated, and also a podcast host for Compass Media. Works with Wally at CBS Sports Network. Monica and I on this side, you guys on that side.
We've had plenty of debates.
Division already?
Yeah, that major division right here.
So I'm going to keep him in line in this segment.
20-year anniversary for this guy. 6th overall pick in
That's right.
1999.
Look at
Sweet
Right.
16, Miami of Ohio. But you guys knew that already. You work with him.
Yep.
Super
You get
exciting.
along with him okay?
We do.
I said the first year was probably a little bit,
Yeah, a little rocky,
a little
but
edgy, but
it's been
we moved on to, I think, half
smooth
brother
sailing
types.
ever
If you
since.
can get him to
Half
pay
brother.
attention over with you, then you've done a good job, because we have our challenges here.
Phil lays it all out on the table. We didn't even start a segment. He already threw you under the bus.
I know.
I wouldn't walk out to 7th Avenue with this guy.
I can take it. Leave your soft skin at home, Bill, all right?
We're a family here.
Yes,
Movado
we are.
presents our countdown to the draft. Visit Movado.com. It is Thursday night. How much time, please? Well, it is coming, and it is coming fast. And John, Knicks 3rd overall. Tell us what we don't know about RJ Barrett.
Well, the first thing, if you're a Knicks fan, that you want to do is breathe a sigh of relief, because this is not a consolation prize. This is a guy 12 months ago who was thought to be the consensus #1 overall pick in the 2019 NBA draft. He is not the cultural phenomenon that Zion Williamson is, but is RJ Barrett, pound for pound, inch for inch, the least talked about first-team All-American that we've seen in the last decade? In the 6 games that Zion Williamson did not play, he averaged 26, 8, and 5. I mean, we are talking about a high-level producer. It's probably a little bit too early to say that he's going to be a transcendent player at the NBA level, but I think it's safe to say somebody who's going to produce and produce for a long time. And look, I don't want to cross the streams here and say that I'm an NBA guy, but I will say this.
Welcome to the dark side.
Well, no, I'm not becoming a Sith this early. I'm going to say this. I think it's a positive thing that you have somebody in RJ Barrett whose DNA is to want to go to Duke and to want to be in major markets. And if you're going to wind up with somebody with that chemical makeup, if you're the Knicks, that's a big positive.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see this guy on the world's most famous arena if the Knicks do take him. I just think he's going to project out to have a phenomenal 15-year career. He's going to develop as a player in whatever uniform he's drafted by. If it is the Knicks, he's going to continue to get better. You talked about his pedigree. His dad was a tremendous athlete, so that transfers to helping your son and really teaching him how to be a pro. And he's going to be a pro in whatever uniform he's in. So I love those numbers, and this is going to be a player that if he isn't in a Knick uniform, fans are going to be happy with for a long, long time.
Single most thing about Barrett, or single most exciting thing about Barrett's game, if you had to pick one thing to get excited about.
Demeanor, a stone cold killer, somebody that's going to be in a situation where he wants to really shoulder a lot of the responsibility. Now, to be honest, this is a volume guy. This is somebody that, didn't have a game where he attempted single-digit shots last season at Duke. Cam Reddish had 12, Zion Williamson had 5. But another thing we need to look at, too, is the amount of responsibility that not just RJ Barrett, but the entire Duke freshman class had to shoulder. I mean, there was nobody on this team in the mold of a Quinn Cook or an Emile Jefferson or a Matt Jones like we saw in 2015 when Duke won the national championship. Another thing about RJ Barrett, Zion Williamson, these guys, and you know this better than anybody, did not play in great space because Duke was not a good three-point shooting team. So if you're a ball-dominant player, you need to play with capable shot makers. He will play with better shot makers instantly in the NBA than he did at Duke.
All right, we've talked a lot about the top of the first round. How about some first-round sleepers, John?
Well, before we get to first-round sleepers, I think we need to look at, this is a draft too, Bill, where you got to say that there might be a guy that you get at 30 or 31 that's more productive down the road at somebody at 9 or 10. 3 right there on the board. Chuma Okeke from Auburn, the best player on the floor for Auburn in their Sweet 16 win against North Carolina before tearing his ACL. Eric Paschall, a player from Villanova who's probably more productivity than potential, and I've been really banging the Cam Johnson drum for weeks right now. I talked to Billy Lang about an hour ago as the new coach at St. Joe's, who was an assistant for the Sixers the last couple of seasons under Brett Brown, and he told me that the number one thing that's going to translate in today's NBA is shooting. For all the talk about Kobe White and Nasir Little, Cam Johnson is hiding in plain sight. Made 96 threes last year, shot better than 45 from deep.
Yeah.
That's something that's going to translate. It's like Cam Johnson's a little bit like Wally.
Why do you? Sorry, Wally.
Go ahead.
In college, not in the pro.
I mean, that guy's
Okeke,
just a
though.
sniper. I completely agree. And you compare him to Cam Reddish. They're similar body types. He's got good size. He runs off screens. He makes threes at a high percentage. Cam Reddish was a guy who he had so many open looks. He didn't knock down shots just because because he's a little bit younger, he's projected in the top 5, top 10. I'm with you. Watch out for Cam Johnson. I think he's going to have a great
Well,
NBA.
and I didn't mean that Cam Johnson, Wally was obviously much more accomplished than Cam Johnson, but Wally later in his career, when Wally battled obviously knee injuries.
Way to hedge it.
No,
Go
I'm
ahead,
serious.
go ahead.
Wally was a big piece around somebody like LeBron James
Yeah.
who needed
Yeah.
support.
Spacing, yeah.
Cam Johnson in the right situation, I mean, shooting isn't going to go away.
Yeah.
Oh, Kiki, coming off an injury.
That's right.
I think there's high reward with Chuma Okeke with an early second round pick because the in term right now in the NBA is what the combo forward.
Right.
You can't get somebody who is a combo forward type at that portion in the draft, if we're talking about between 25 and 40, that really embodies the term better than Chuma Okeke. He's a little bit of Robert Horry. He's a little bit of Tobias Harris. And again, when all the chips were in the middle of the table and it was Auburn, North Carolina, and Sweet 16, we watched the game together. He's the best player on the floor before he tore his ACL.
All right, how about some mystery men for us?
This is where we have to dive a little bit deeper, but I am a big factor, or a big fan, as you know, of looking at potential and guys that are very mercurial. Kevin Porter Jr., pound for pound, inch for inch, is one of the more talented players in this draft. Again, there's a lot of questions on whether or not he knows how to play, whether or not he can coexist with other people. Darius Bazley was viewed as a second coming of Tayshaun Prince if he went to Syracuse a couple years ago. He opted not to go to college, and obviously be in a situation where he could just prepare himself for the NBA, didn't have an interest in being a college athlete. And then Matisse
Like the Knicks, Mitchell Robinson.
Yes.
Very similar. And then Matisse Thybulle is unique because you have somebody who was the best defensive player in college basketball last year, but is now going to transition from being an anchor in Washington's 2-3 zone. Obviously, Washington coached by Mike Hopkins, former Syracuse disciple, and now transition to being a straight-up wing defender in the NBA. To be a 3-and-D guy, he's got to be a consistent three-point shooter, which is something that needs to become consistent. And defensively in that 2-3 zone, Mike Hopkins used to say that Matisse Thybulle was Washington's Deion Sanders. There's going to be a little bit of a transition from making that transition from being a zone player to a man-to-man player. Though, I want to add, too, he was not working out at the Combine. I'm hearing Matisse Thybulle is slated to go maybe in the 21 through 30 range on Thursday night.
So Mitch is a great example. But Bazley, what was he doing this past year?
Training. You know, it's one thing that, you know, he had no interest in being a college athlete. And here's somebody who, again, you know, he got a highly touted endorsement deal when he opted not to go to Syracuse. And he's somebody from the people I've spoken with. He interviewed very well with NBA teams during the pre-draft process. But it's another example, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago with RJ Hampton. If you're a blue chip prospect today, the most important thing that you are interested in is starting your professional clock. Education has never been less valued, really, than today, more so than today, you know, with the NBA draft. And I think this is one of the stories after the draft's over that we're going to look at and really see. I mean, you've got 3 players in this draft from UCLA, a world-class institution. Jalen Hands, Chris Wilkes, Moses Brown. There's a strong chance that all 3 go undrafted. They didn't play in an NCAA tournament last year. Their coach got fired in December, and they bypassed an opportunity to go back to Westwood and play at UCLA.
For more great videos from the MSG 150, check out right there. And remember, our show is on Monday through Thursday, 8 to 10:30 p.m. on MSG Network and MSG Go.